Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series live stream. Here we've got the women's race in the series race number 2 at the RGT platform Dirty REIVER course. For those of you who were with us last week, you'll know that we are doing a racing in a 3-race series here, starting with our crit last week and our road race coming up next week, which is the final in the 3-race series. And what we've got here is our gravel race at the Dirty REIVER section here. We have a great field of women racing today, a little bit larger than last week, so it's great to see all of the new riders here. For those of you who are tuning into the men's race earlier, you know that we had a bit of a snafu with the start time, but fortunately that only extended to the men's race, and the women's race will be starting on time in about 2 minutes time. So thanks everyone for joining today, and of course be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to make sure that you're notified every time that we have a new live stream coming up. And if you have a moment, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events, that's ARCEVENTS, and help support the live stream as we are moving forward. So let me introduce you once again, my co-host for the day. That is Josh Peacock from Cycling Canada. How's it going, Josh? We have lost Josh's audio. Hold on one second. Josh, you there? Up. I think I got you now, Josh.
Am I here? Can you get me?
Yep.
All right. It's been, as Andrew mentioned, the morning of technical difficulty. Women's race here. We just got off about 10. We saw a great little sprint there in Ontario at the end. Expecting some more action here today for the women's race. I see a lot of the same familiar faces. We've got our leaders here today as well. Going to be an exciting day of racing, a really neat course. Gravel this time instead of road. Mixed things up a little bit and got some elevation compared to last week. So completely different in almost every respect, but should offer some exciting racing.
For sure. Thanks for that, Josh. And sorry for the technical difficulties out there, folks. It's a little tough to do a Zoom live stream with 2 commentators and to get this all pushed out to you. So hopefully we'll have everything worked out. We're looking at a start in about 15 seconds. So ladies, start revving your engines. You want to be up to full speed for that start. You can see everybody's numbers jumping up right now. So here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And they're off. All right, so now we're going to make sure that I've got some power and we're moving forward here. And I'm going to move on up to our front of the race here. There we go. A nice big start for our women here. Let me pull up our camera control and check out who is staying with this group here.
And while Andrew's doing that, I can go through, just for those tuning in, if you're not exactly sure about what you're looking at, there is some organization to the madness here. So we can quickly sort of outline the jerseys to you. What you will see up front is a pink jersey. That's your junior series leader, and that's kind of different from everything else. And you'll also see kind of a teal colored jersey. You'll see them both kind of up at the front. That's our 2 leaders, our junior in the pink and our U17 leader in that sort of teal color. As well, you're going to see some pretty big showings of red and white jerseys. That's your Team Ontario kit. Also, you'll see a blue jersey. It'll say sort of training peaks down the side of the leg. That is your Team Quebec. Showing in the green and black, that's your Primal Audi kit, which belongs to Team Sask, which has a great showing here today. Also, we saw it quite evident in the last race. Hanging out up front was the blue and the pink and the teal colored jersey of Team BC. So we'll expect a good showing from them as well today. We do have a lone rider from New Brunswick this time. So welcome to Kristen Simpson. And as well, we've got Alberta out there, the other blue team, if you will. They're in the decathlon kit. So welcome to Team Alberta here as well. So hopefully that kind of helps you identify the different groups. You will start to see probably some organization, a bunch of the red and whites hanging out together up front, or a bunch of the blues hanging out together up front. This is that team strategy that we've become quite familiar with in virtual racing and in-person racing alike.
for sure. And I don't want to get in trouble with mom again, so it's Kirsten Simpson, not Kristen. And I think last week I said Kirsten, so apologies that we're not landing that one, but moving forward we'll make sure that it is Kirsten Simpson. A lot of activity happening in the race right now. As you're looking on screen, this race has split up pretty quickly. We're following Gunter right now in 7th position with a group of 3 other riders, and you look forward and it's basically completely shattered already. So we'll see how this race turns out. Something very similar happened in our race last week at the Crit, where it did split up fairly quickly, and then it was almost a group of 4 like we're seeing now here at the front. Nicole Bradbury with Dylan Baker, and let me pull out my start list here for the women. That's Annabelle Thomas, and we also have Myers, which I don't have on my start list. But in the race for sure. If anybody at home is watching, you can let me know what the E stands for in Myers there. But we certainly do have quite a few people watching at home right now. We're up to almost 30 viewers, and that's friends, family, and hopefully, like last week, we had a few grandparents watching from across the country. So be sure to go to the live chat and send shout outs to your favorite riders, and we'll try to repeat them online. Looks like even before we started, we had Diane Rittinger saying that she was all set up and ready here in Medicine Hat to cheer you on, Nora R. So it's great to have folks from all across the country with us today for sure. Art Adams ready here with Dylan, Nora L, and Annika. Rick Lee from Ontario saying good luck everybody, and Kelly S saying go Kirsten. Jim Hrichuk saying go Team Sask. Of course, that's the home team for this race here. And as I'm even talking right now, we have some people joining in the conversation. Kirsty repping New Brunswick. That's from Kelly S. And then Tanya Dubnikov is watching. Wow. There we go. Saying Ella Myers, Tanya Dubnikov, one of our big coaches in Canada here for the track. Josh, what can you say about Tanya?
Yeah, we got a legend in the crowd. So welcome Tanya, Olympian in her own right. So amazing to see Tanya here watching. It kind of goes to show, this series has definitely caught the eye of many, and Tanya, an established coach herself, based out of Alberta. So it's great to see some familiar faces. It looks like folks like we got Rick Lee there, who is questions. We don't have a ton of people commenting, so usually we can get to them. If you have any questions about the nuances you're seeing on screen or different sort of ins and outs of virtual cycling, that's what we're here for. We're going to try our best to answer, but really great to see sort of the community aspect. We got people from all over the country tuning in and cheering on the team. So really, really great to see some familiar faces and names out there. Those folks we might normally see in real life at the events, we're missing you guys, but really great to be able to see you here in the comment section at the very least.
So it looks like once again we are set up with the same scenario that we had last week, where we could say the four horsewomen of the apocalypse are up front and putting some serious distance on the rest of the field. Right now we have Myers, Bradbury, Thomas, and Baker, all with about 100 meters and change on the rest of the pack there. So this may turn out to be the front of the race. So we'll see if we have some challengers in behind in 5th through 8th. We have Cochin, Perdon, Rogers, and Gunter. All working really hard. You can see their wattages are up high. They're hoping to not let this group get away. If we take a look at the on-screen elevation map, we'll put that up for you right now at home. Everyone's riding in a very flat section of the course, but within about 1 kilometer or so, we're going to get to the well, not quite the first. There was a climb almost right out of the gate, but we'll call this the first punchy climb of the day. It certainly is the longest one for sure. As we start out with some low slope, some low incline, and then it gets right into the red where we're getting upwards of 7-8 degrees in terms of that elevation. So we'll see if this group splits up or stays together. Now that'll certainly be some interesting tactics, Josh, because if you look on the screen, you'll see that all 4 of these riders are from different different clubs or different provinces, except actually, so we've got 2 Ontario riders here. I thought it was different because Dylan Baker is our current series leader. She's wearing that fuchsia series leader jersey, and there's also a junior series, U17 series leader, and that's Annabelle Thomas. So Annabelle is from Alberta, but she is wearing the current series leader jersey, and Dylan Baker's wearing the junior women series leader. We've also got E. Myers wearing that's the blue kit, light blue kit, which is which team is that here? Alberta as well, I think. Josh?
Yeah, that light blue would be the decathlon kit, which is Team Alberta. So maybe somebody, if you've got some parents or coaches watching in the comments section, maybe help us clarify so we can make sure we're giving the proper shout outs here. But as Andrew mentioned, very similar to our crit race in Canary Wharf last week, we have representation across the different provinces. So really exciting to see that. Not only that, we have representation across our 2 different age categories. So for those who don't know, we do have junior racers, which is 17 and 18-year-olds, as well as U17 racers, which is 15 and 16-year-olds, all racing in the same race. They will race together in those same bunch sprints, creating the same packs across the group. They will be scored, however, separately in the series ranking. So you may see a U17 rider, for instance, finish in the second group or a bit further back, but that could actually still be a top 5 or a top 10 finish. So the encouragement to the riders there, I'm sure they're getting it from their coaches and their ear set, is keep going, stay strong. You're still riding for a position in the series. So just a little bit of education there for those watching. We do have a mixed group. And again, really exciting to see riders like our U17 leader, Annabelle Thomas, sort of tossing it up there with the junior riders up front. That goes to show the strength of these young riders.
So as you can see on screen, we have our lead group now entering that really large climb section, and it broke apart almost immediately in the shallow section of the climb. We had Bradbury and Baker to an advantage right now. They are about 20 meters ahead of Thomas and Myers, and we just found out from our online crowd that it's Ella Myers, and she is definitely from Alberta. So 2 Alberta riders here, our junior series leader, our U17 series leader, and we're at the big climb of the day, and it has shattered. So we'll see if this comes back together, because if you look at the top right of the screen, you'll see all these little sort of upside down teardrops, and that's representing all of the riders that are within the sort of the given area. I'd say about a kilometer or so. So if they do break apart, they won't have that advantage of riding together. If you look at last week's ride where there were 4 riders together, they were able to sort of use the game's physics and ride around each other and get some draft and to keep that pace really high. But if you've reduced it down to yourself, or maybe you and your teammate, because we have 2 riders from each of the 2 provinces listed, Alberta and Ontario, it may not be as easy, so you'll see it come back together, but that may give the riders in the back a chance to come back, right? So you've already got, if you look at Bradbury and Baker, they're sitting about 200 meters ahead of Ellen Myers right now, who's about 50 meters behind Annabelle. But then you've got Rogers, Gunter, Volstad, and Cochon only 60 or 70 meters back. So, you can see them putting some distance on Myers and Thomas. And if they get swallowed up by this group, they may even be able to catch back on to Bradbury and Baker. So it may not be in their advantage at this point to get away. We'll see how the race unfolds. Let me take this screen view and move on up and see. We've got Annabelle Thomas here riding solo. She's got the climb under her belt already and is now in the descent part of the section. And if we move forward, we've got Baker and Bradbury still working somewhat together, but they do have a bit of a gap. I'm not sure how well the physics work in this game and at what point you get that kind of draft. In real life, you may even get a small draft from somebody 5 to 10 meters away, but of course you want to be right on that wheel, and Bradbury's moved on up and they're working well together. So we'll see if this one turns out, and we'll see if Thomas and Myers can certainly bridge back up. But of course, they've got some competition right behind them, Gunter and Rogers, Cochon, that might be able to come up and bridge this gap now created by Baker and Bradbury.
And important to note here too, Andrew, up front we do have Dylan Baker and Nicole Bradbury, 2 very strong junior riders we know all too well. And then up next, you do have that Annabelle Thomas chasing them close behind. Now that is your first place U17 rider. So as mentioned, it's kind of the race within the race you've got going on. So although we do see Annabelle Thomas a little bit back on these 2 riders already, she is leading that U17 race. So very exciting to see that, and we'll see if she can bridge that gap.
And on top of that, we have Graham and Bop back on the live stream with us. That's Annabelle's grandparents. So they're saying, "Go Annabelle, we're watching from Ottawa." So once again, a cross-country viewership and a cross-country ridership. So virtual racing is certainly something to behold, that's for sure.
You know what this reminds me, Andrew? We haven't introduced the field yet.
We certainly haven't. Why don't we take a moment to do that?
Let's do that so everybody can kind of get an idea. I mean, our screen will definitely jump from rider to rider, but we want to let you know who's all here. We do have a good cross-country representation, so we'll kind of go through province by province. From the Alberta crew, we've got Annabelle Thomas, as you've heard quite a bit of already. She's our U17 leader representing Cyclemeister's Bow Cycle out of Calgary. Representing Team Alberta, Alexandra Volstad, as well as Ella Myers. She's not here on my start list, but we have established that she's here and she's from Alberta and she's riding quite strong. From BC, we've got a pair of U17 riders, Geza Rogers, as well as Sarah Roberts. That's representing Live Canada Off-Road Team, as well as Sarah Roberts from Cycling BC. Again, those are two U17 riders. From Team Manitoba, we have Erin Gunter, who is a junior rider, had quite the strong showing last week. Very exciting to watch her. On the U17 side from Manitoba, we have an independent rider, Amy Gauthier. Welcome, Amy. From New Brunswick, we do have a sole rider. That's Kirsten Simpson. And seeing the club here, it says try and be. So again, that kind of speaks to the strengths we see in virtual cycling. Just like in the road or in the World Championships, we saw a guy like Lionel Sanders, a triathlete, very strong, one of the best in the world. So I suspect we've got Kirsten here from a triathlon team or a triathlon background, which is really neat to see.
I'm going to pause you there for a second, Josh, before we finish the team. I want to check back in with the race, and it looks like Thomas and Myers have been able to bridge back up to Bradbury and Baker. Bradbury just off the back, but she's working hard to get back on. So now we have our original rider group of 4 back together. So let's.
And so that would give us an Ontario-Alberta showdown. Very cool. As mentioned, it's always good to see several provinces mixing up. And with that, we'll jump back into the team sort of announcements here. We've got Ontario rider U17, Annika Brandt from Attack Racing, a good sort of crew here. For Attack, we also have Dylan Baker. That's our junior rider riding up front in that pink jersey. She also represents Attack Racing. Rounding off the Attack Racing crew in the U17 group is Nora Linton. The other sort of half of the Ontario team here is NCCH, a very well-known group on the road and the track. Rider up first is junior rider Maria Montrichard, as well as Nicole Bradbury, who we're seeing up there in the front. We've also got Sophie Bradbury in the race, as well as Vanessa Montrichard and Yasmin Purdon. Those are all NCCH riders of different age groups, U17 and junior. From Equipe de Quebec, we have from the Dynamics team, Brittany Cochon, who is a junior rider, as well as Melina Gouvremont. I believe we would have just seen her brother race in the men's race and had a very strong showing from Espoir Laval. And to round off, we've got the home team here from Team SAS. We've got Julia Smith, Nora Rittinger, who has a very active fan group in the broadcast today. So welcome back, guys, as well as Sofia Hrysiuk from Team SAS. So that rounds off our riders. Good representation across the country, and already we're seeing a good mix-up up front. So
names onto our on-screen graphics in time, because Reg does close pretty late in the day on Saturday. So if you want to make sure that you get a mention on the live stream, be sure to register early and often. Well, no, just early and once, of course. We don't want to have to delete names on there. But there's no reason you can't do it right when you get off the bike today. So go register for next week's race, which is happening at the same time. And of course, that is the which race are we looking at next week, Josh?
Yeah, next week we are heading off to Mallorca. One of, I guess it would be, this is what we tend to see in these things is real world style courses. So that's the Cap de Formentor road race. Again, we're going to see some elevation. This one will contain actually not quite as much elevation. No, it will be. It'll be more elevation than this week. We'll have a total distance of 22.4 kilometers. So slightly shorter, but more elevation in a different sort of profile. Here we're seeing a bit of a steady, sustained climb into a bit of a descent into the lap marker. Next week, we're going to see some real steady, punchy up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's only going to be one lap. So it's not like we'll have some strategy after we've seen it once. We're going to see it again. You hit that climb once, you hit that descent once, and then it's on to the next. So that one will be again this time, this place next week. That'll be the final race for this phase. So pressure will be on, especially if we're seeing some tight competition in the series rankings for U17 and junior. And that will sort of wrap up this phase of the junior virtual cycling series. So we know that's something the riders are looking forward to, and of course we're looking forward to seeing it. It's been really neat here to see the different profiles of courses. For those who watched last week, very flat in a city, not on the gravel. Then obviously today we've got some hilliness, we've got some punchiness, splitting the group right up. And next week I expect we'll see more of the same in Majorca.
For sure. So we've been watching on screen our league group of 4 riders, but there are more riders in this race. So why don't we take a few moments and take a look at where some of those riders that we mentioned in our start list are in the race today. So everyone, you're going to see me jump back to this is my avatar in the race. Both Josh and I have avatars in this race so that we can actually provide this commentary to you. But moving forward, let me just hit the right button there and then show you. We've got Nora Rittinger here is working really, really hard. She has a super, super strong fan base right now online. So hopefully she can hear this and let us say that your fans are cheering you on, Nora. So keep working hard there. Right in front of Nora, we've got our New Brunswick rider, Kirsten Simpson. And don't forget, folks, that this is both a junior and a U17 race, so this kind of split is to be expected. So Kirsten Simpson, you also have a big fan base, so keep going, work hard, and try to close that gap. And then in the front of Simpson there, we have Montrichard. That's Vanessa Montrichard from Ontario NCCH, working really hard. And then we've got 2 riders together, Nora Litton and that I believe is Annika Brantz. They were riding together, so keep doing that, keep riding together, and use the game's physics to see if you can put some distance on the group in front of you there. Sophie Bradbury, so this is Nicole Bradbury's younger sister. They've been racing in Ontario for quite a while, and they certainly are both powerhouses in their respective categories. So keep going, Sophie, you're doing a great job there. Yasmin Purdon from Ontario. Yasmin and Sophie, they're sitting 10th and 9th and 10th respectively. So this is your top 10 we're now looking at in the race. This is, of course, a point series, so keep working hard to keep and hold on to your position, or maybe move up a few notches to gain those valuable points. In 8th position right now, we have Alexandra Volstad, independent rider from Alberta. So this is our 3rd rider from Alberta, along with Thomas and Emily
Myers.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. It's on the list right there. So that's Alexandra Volstad. Moving up our list, in 7th place right now, we have Brittany Cochon from l'Équipe du Québec. Allez, allez. Lots of people joined us this morning from Quebec. Bienvenue tout le monde. Thank you for coming, and hopefully we have some other viewers from the belle province du Québec. Moving up, we have a group of 3 riders. So this is 5, 6, and 7. So this is our active chase group. It looks like Myers has fallen off from our group. So we have a group of 3 in the front, and then a group of 3 in chase. So that's Myers, Gunter, and Rogers. 3 different clubs together, all working hard to catch up to that group of Baker, Thomas, and Bradbury. And then, of course, we have our front group, and that is, like I just said, Bradbury, Thomas, and Baker leading out the race. And there you have it, folks.
And we're seeing the comment sections on fire for this race. Always love seeing this. So it looks like we got quite the cheering section for both Noras. We got a cheering section for Nora Rittinger out of Saskatchewan, and we've also got a cheering section here for Nora Linton from Ontario, part of the team Attack Racing. So great to see that. Also, we've got Kirsten. We're getting some nice clarification here about Kirsten Simpson. Sorry, we will get that name right one of these races. She just started training only about, what do we say here, in the last few months, and making quite a bit of progress. So good for her. She's part of a triathlon club out of New Brunswick. So as mentioned, cross-discipline, strength. We're starting to see, that virtual cycling can kind of be anyone's game. And who knows, maybe a few of these triathletes, sort of specific athletes, might try out some road racing on home soil, and when it comes time to do this stuff again in real life. So great to see that. As well, we're seeing some good cheering on. I'm just trying to keep through everything. So we got, the Bradburys. We got the mother of the Bradburys sort of saying, go NCCH. As mentioned, that's about half of our team Ontario here is NCCH. So great to see that as well. Just keep on bringing in the comments. We like to hear the predictions. We like to hear your comments. We like to answer your questions. So really great to see this sort of section lighting up here for the riders. I'm sure they'll be able to go back and check this out afterwards.
So the pointy end of the race right now is in the big descent section of lap number 1. We're just past 9.5 kilometers with approximately 7 and change left to go before we hit that finish line and get the bell for the final lap. While we're looking at these riders, Josh, why don't we take a moment and thank all of our partners and sponsors who make this possible. As many of you know, cycling isn't a super top tier sport in Canada, much like hockey would be. So it takes a lot of effort from volunteers and organizations to make things happen. And we have a lot of great sponsors on the list today and a lot of provincial and national partners who make this possible. And we'd like to take a moment to thank them and to let you know what they're all about so that you can check them out and see for yourself. So.
Yeah, a great list of series supporters and series sponsors here. We'll start off by all those provincial associations that are represented here in the race today that have shown some support for the series, encourage riders to get out, got their coaches involved. So we'll start with, obviously, again, we keep saying it, the hometown crowd. That is the SCA or Sask Performance Program. That is the group that has put this race series on. So big shout out to those guys. Russ and Caleb from Saskatchewan, they've done a great job piecing this all together, and their work definitely doesn't go unnoticed. So thanks, guys. Saskatchewan Cycling Association is a development program for young high-performance cyclists. Performance cycling program members also make up the organizing committee of this series, as mentioned. Check out saskcycling.ca for more details on SCA. Next up is the Ontario Cycling Association, quite the big contingent from there today. The Ontario Cycling Association is the provincial sport organization of the province of Ontario. The OCA provides quality programs and events to recreational and competitive cyclists in Ontario. To find out more, check out ontariocycling.org. Velo New Brunswick, we have our lone rider Kirsten from New Brunswick today. So Velo New Brunswick is the home of cycling in New Brunswick. Velo NB offers cycle coaching, touring, racing, and events for their members. To learn more about this Atlantic cycling destination, hit up velo.nb.ca. Alberta Bicycle Association, few strong riders represented from there today as well. We're seeing them up front. The Alberta Bicycle Association is the affiliated provincial sport organization of Cycling Canada for the province of Alberta. The mission of the ABA is to advocate, develop, and facilitate bicycling for Albertans. Check out albertabicycle.ab.ca for more info. And to round off our provincial associations, we've got Manitoba Cycling Association. They are the not-for-profit, volunteer-based provincial sport organization responsible for the promotion and development of cycling in Manitoba since 1980. For more, head to mbcycling.ca. And last on the provincial side is my employer, of course, that is Cycling Canada. Cycling Canada is the national governing body for the sport of cycling in Canada. As many of you may not know, at over 137 years old, Cycling Canada is actually the oldest national sport organization in the entire country. Head on over to cyclingcanada.ca to learn more about who we are and what we do. And some gracious corporate sponsors who made this series possible. Four Eyes, a proud sponsor of Cycling Canada and the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series. Four Eyes Innovations believes in empowering athletes by providing them with all the tools they need to get the most accurate results. From recreational riders and runners to sponsored pro teams, Four Eye creates tools that help customers train for personal best or podium finishes. Four Eye will also be providing 2 Power Meter draw prizes at the end of the series, with each participant gaining an entry into the draw. Thanks, Four Eyes, and all other supporters of the series. Let's race. And last but not least is Cliff. Many of you may have seen from previous phases of this race series, Cliff has provided a prize pack for the winner of each of the U17 and junior men's and women's series. Once again, they'll be delivering on that. So there'll be a prize pack sent along to each of those series winners. Want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to Cliff for supporting this series and is also supporting Cycling Canada as a whole. They've been a gracious sponsor over the years and really happy to have them part of this series. So again, big shout out to all of our provincial federation and corporate sponsors. This series would not be possible without you. So Thanks again. The riders here appreciate it. We're glad we can put this on, and I'll pass it back over to you, Andrew.
All right, Josh, thanks very much. Checking back in with the race, we still have our 3 riders in the lead, Baker, Thomas, and Bradbury. But if you take a look at the numbers on the left, they were able to, the chase group was able to put a little bit of distance in between them. So they were down to about 90 or 80 meters at one point. So like what we talked about earlier, where the riders, maybe because they're in a smaller group, they don't have that advantage anymore of the draft. So it's a bit tougher to keep the group away. Of course, now they're in a bit of a descent, so that number is increasing. But I think we're going to see that happen again, where, because now we've got Myers down back with Gunter, Rogers, and they're going to be all 3 of them working together. So it's a group of 3 in the front, group of 3. So positions 4 through 6 are now about 120 meters back. Even if I look behind the race right now, you can see them just a little bit in the distance there. It looks insurmountable, but 100 meters isn't a lot. If they put in a good dig, they may be able to come back and mix it up with our lead 3. And then after that, then it looks like running down the list, a few of the riders are riding solo. It's unfortunate, but again, it's a smaller field and it is a points race, so everyone needs to work really, really hard and to try to maintain the position they have so that they can get their points for the points series. Josh, what's happening online right now? Do you got the chat room open there?
The chat room is open and we're getting lots of love on here for sure. We're seeing lots of support for NCCH, Nicole and Sophie, Bradbury. Obviously, we've got some fans in the group here, and both Norris. Again, Diane Rettinger is back and we're happy to see her. Had some great discussions last week. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just really a nice cheering squad here. So again, if there's any questions or if you have any predictions for how this thing is going to go, we're a decent way into lap number 1. And I'd like to point out, how exciting is it to see we've got our U17 series leader, Annabelle Thomas from Alberta, right up front with 2 of potentially the country's strongest junior female riders there. So, really exciting to see that we can now, in these off months where these these athletes would normally be sort of training off on their own with their teams, everything else, now we can kind of see like where they're at and how they're stacking up, against riders not only their age, but some of the best in the next age category up. Again, for those who don't know, we do have a mixed category race. So U17 riders are mixed with junior riders. They will be ranked separately in the series. Our U17 riders are aged 15 and 16. Now that's age as of December 31st of this year. So technically speaking, we could have riders as of today that may be 14 years old, turning 15 by the end of the year. On the same page, we could have riders 18 years old racing against them. So to see a U17 rider up there, up front with the junior riders who are aged 17 and 18, pretty exciting stuff.
Josh, a thought that I had is that, by doing these kinds of series now, we're giving our young athletes the opportunity to really learn what it's like to race virtually. And the way things are going in the world, the pandemic only really just accelerated this. We were already moving in towards that virtual kind of racing scene, where even just before the pandemic in 2019, the UCI announced its partnership with Zwift to do a world championship for e-racing. So that's where the tide was going, and we just went into high gear with the pandemic, and now everybody joining these virtual cycling groups and organizations. So by giving this opportunity to these young racers, they're now learning, what they need to do to race, so that when they get to that elite age, or for some of the younger ones, the junior age, and they start competing a little bit more professionally at bigger events, UCI events, or what have you, they'll have that advantage by doing so. Whereas riders who didn't grow up with this, they're sort of thrust into it right away. They may not have the skill set. So it certainly is a good grassroots opportunity for them to learn.
Certainly, Andrew, and I think we've talked about this plenty, at Cycling Canada and around the world, really. But I think the consensus is out there. This is certainly not just we're doing this, and virtual cycling is big and at the top of mind for a lot of people because of a pandemic. I think we're looking at virtual cycling really as a discipline in its own right, the same way we might see road cycling versus track cycling versus BMX. It's got its own nuances. For us in Canada, it's a really great opportunity to remain competitive during the off season. And even for some people during the season, it provides those opportunities to sort of stay up to date, have a really structured sort of racing and training plan. There's, across various platforms, there's always racing going on. So any day of the week at this point, you can pop into a Zwift race and really test yourself against riders, not just from Canada, but it gives you that opportunity to real time race against people from all over the globe. And you can really do it against anybody, males, females, different age groups. It's wide open racing. So I can attest firsthand, I've been beat many times by some of the same girls in this race and some of those weekly Zwift races we host on Cycling Canada. So it's really cool to see. And I think it's certainly not going anywhere. As soon as this pandemic is finished and we can start, racing outside again, I think we'll see just as much racing like this in the off season.
If our viewers at home, Josh, want to get involved in these group rides that Cycling Canada is offering, where do they go to connect with that?
Yeah, so Cycling Canada sort of developed a multi-platform, we call it, approach where we're working with various different platforms on different races and series. So obviously RGT, we're working closely with the Sask Performance Group to support this very race series. So great to be on the RGT platform. I think it's one of the best ones out there. Currently as well, another platform we're working with is Full Gas, which you can pop on there. There's a 30-day free trial for Cycling Canada members, so you can try that one. That's a little different idea in that it's real world courses. You're seeing real live video footage. We just uploaded actually our 2 road championship courses from Beauce in Saint Georges and Saint Prosper. Really neat to see that. Gives athletes a chance to train on those courses, during the winter, which is exciting. And as Andrew alludes to, we do have regular Zwift Cycling Canada activity happening there. So every Monday and Tuesday night, we host what we call weekly tune-up rides. So Monday being an open ride for everybody, and then Tuesday being a women's only ride, which is really great. We've seen some great uptake, and once in a while, we do invite special guest riders from our national team who pop in, and there's some really great conversation that anybody can sort of chat with a national team member, which is really unique and exciting. And then we sort of cap all that off on Wednesday with some regular weekly races on the same courses you would have trained on Monday and Tuesday. So those races happen at 8:05 and 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, 8:05 being the open race and 8:15 p.m. being the women's only race. So really there's something out there for everybody. Again, it's no limitations. You just have to have a subscription to Zwift and you can pop on there and race anytime. So I've done them, pretty much all of them since the start. It's been really exciting to see the numbers grow and people from all over the world
right on.
Sort of racing under Cycling Canada, which is really great.
Thanks for that, Josh. A little bit of an update in our race situation. We've been watching our front 3 riders for a while and not paying attention to what was happening behind. And it looks like Giza Rogers from the Live Canada off-road team, Team British Columbia, has managed to bridge the gap now. So it's now a new group of 4 at the front that includes Bradbury, Baker, Thomas, and now Giza Rogers from British Columbia. So they have some new competition at the front as they are entering the final kilometer in lap number 1, coming back on to the asphalt for a few kilometers and crossing through the finish line to get the bell. So we'll keep following this new development for the next few minutes, and then after they go through the finish line, we'll take a look back through our list and see how everyone else is doing. But that's certainly an interesting development in the race with Myers falling off in this group earlier. I thought it was going to be a 3-person race, but if you look at left right now, you can see that Myers is only about 50 meters back as well. So this may turn into a 5-rider group at the front, which will certainly mix things up a little bit.
And Andrew, as you say, we were almost getting ready to expect a 3-person race. Then we saw Giza Rogers pop up front. We do potentially have a 5th. What's that going to do for the sort of the mental state or the mindset of those riders who are up front and now all of a sudden they're seeing, okay, here comes another one just joined the group. Like, what do you think that's going to do for their mental game? How do you think that's affecting them in their race? Yeah,
it's pretty tough to say. And as I've mentioned in the previous live streams, even though this is fairly realistic and they try to emulate what it's like to ride on the road, you are missing some of that nuance that you get from actually being there physically. Quite often you can just sort of sense that there are riders around you, and you can look around and see the emotions and reactions of people. And then when a rider jumps, it's very easy for you to go and respond to that jump very quickly, whereas you have to wait for the delay in the virtual world here, and you might not be able to jump on a rider as quickly. So you couple all that together with, you have a solid breakaway, and then riders have just sort of bridged up to you, then that will certainly compound it. As you were saying, I think I mean, cycling it's a mental game. I mean, you have to have the fitness, of course, but after that, it's all up in your head, and things like shut up legs and keep going hard, and do I have that match, and can I do this, and all this stuff. So it certainly will play into effect. And as we're seeing on the screen right now, it's even developing a bit differently here. Bradbury staying off the back a little bit. Annabelle Thomas falling off, taking a bit of a draft there from Bradbury and getting back in. So, as we're sort of rounding the corner to get back on the pavement, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Myers now down to only 30 meters. If we take a look behind, we'll see that she's just right there. And if she digs, looking at her power, she's got the watts per kilo a little bit low right now, but she's being steady, and she's lost some gap now because, of course, we're in a slope, right? So it's easy to put on a couple of 100 meters on a slope. We're back onto the pavement right now. Final 100 meters or so, 500 meters to go before the finish. So take a note of this, folks. When you see the riders come around again on the final lap, once they hit the pavement section, they're less than a kilometer, maybe about 500 meters to go before they come around. And as you're seeing on screen, they're coming around to the final barricaded section with the flags, a couple hundred meters to go. So this is where riders are going to be lining up and looking at each other, these four, possibly others together. If they're still together near the end, they're going to be looking at each other. And then again, that's sort of that thing we talked about, where you can't look around and to see what the riders are doing. You have to know when the best time to go is. You have to know what kind of fitness you have left, and you have to be able to jump at the right time. So here we are: Thomas, Bradbury, Baker, and Rogers leading out, with Myers in hot pursuit in 5th position right now. Let's take a moment while we just saw that our front group got the bell for the final lap to see how our other riders are doing. So we'll just take a look here and head on back to my avatar and then start moving forward. And I need to do one more button push. And there we go. We have Nora Rittinger working hard still at about the 15K mark. So a couple more kilometers to go before she gets the bell lap there. So keep working really hard there, Nora. You got a big cheering squad for yourself at home, online, cheering you on. And we just saw that Nora had passed Erin Gunter from Team Manitoba. Looks like she might be having a tech-canical. Josh, after we finish going through these riders, maybe you can remind everyone what a tech-canical is. And now we've got Vanessa Montrechard from NCCH in Ontario working really hard. Vanessa's in 13th position overall, so keep that going there, Vanessa. In 12th position from New Brunswick, Kirsten Simpson from Tri NB, and as we were told online that the Tri stands for triathlon, so Kirsten is a multi-sport athlete, and that's really good to see, especially at this age. You don't want to be focused too much on one sport because it does help, certainly from the training perspective and the psychological mental game, to have different outlets and stuff like that. So Kirsten, that's great that you're participating in triathlon. In 11th position here, we've got Yasmin Purdon. Yasmin is sitting at about 16.5 kilometers into the race, about 1.5 kilometers back from our group. But it looks like she has a group to ride with. So here we go. 11th through to the 8th position. That's Annika Brandt, Sophie Bradbury, the other Nora Linton, and Yasmin Purdon all riding together. So that is that's good for this group. I don't have the list quite in front of me, but I think this might be a lot of U17s. Is that correct, Josh?
Yeah, certainly. There's a good group of U17s there, both mid-pack and up front. We're seeing split U17 junior up front and, again, throughout the pack.
So in terms of race strategy, it might not be important for this particular group to be chasing down the front of the race, while it might only be 8th position in the race itself. But when we break it down to the junior women and U17 women race series, 8th position might actually be 2nd, 3rd, or 4th kind of thing. So, while it would be fantastic for our spectators to see this group try to bridge that gap, they may not need to in terms of their overall race series.
Certainly, Andrew, and you did make mention, and happy to allude to it, as the tech-canical, the dreaded tech-canical, and I think we just kind of coined that ourselves in the last week's broadcast of this, but rest assured, as mentioned earlier on in this broadcast, that every rider who participates has been entered into a draw for one of 2 4i precision non-drive side factory install power meters. For any rider who has a tech-canical or basically has to drop out of the race, maybe there was a bad internet connection or they don't have the latest version of the app and it kind of crashed on a mid-race, no worries. Yes, you won't get a result in the race, unfortunate, but you will be granted sort of a consolation entry into that prize winning draw for a 4 Eyes power meter. So all is not lost. If there is a silver lining in having a technical, it's maybe your added chances of winning one of those power meters. So a little bit of a consolation there. Unfortunately, with virtual racing comes technical issues, which is we're no stranger to those ourselves. We've been through a few of those this morning and this afternoon. So these things do happen. One of the realities, we get a flat, we get a mechanical on the road in a real race, and here we get internet dropouts. So the future of cycling these days.
Yeah, that's for sure. And even doing this live stream is a technical challenge for sure. As I'm sure some of our viewers at home have noticed, we dropped the signal a few times during the race, so we apologize for that. Hopefully those drops don't happen at the sprint finish, which is where these ladies are driving towards right now. Annika Brandt's in the front there, driving towards the finish line. Still one more lap to go, so this group will be getting the bell in a couple of 100 meters. Once again, this is our final stretch, so once they've hit that asphalt section, that is less than a kilometer to go, maybe about half a kilometer overall. So you're going to see a lot of the attacking happening either slightly before this pave section or maybe right as they get on it. So here's the finish line on the screen, so keep your eyes out for that. For those of you who were watching last week, you know that I called the finish wrong because there were several overhead gantries and weird sprints right before the finish, and then I hadn't been paying attention enough to realize that wasn't the actual sprint finish. So called it wrong, but we did okay with the men's race this morning, so I suspect that we'll do okay in this one. Moving on up the group, let's see what we've got here. A small little group here. This is positions 6 and 7. It's we've got Volstad, that's Alexandre Volstad from Alberta, and Brittany Cochon from l'équipe de Dynamics, I'm guessing Dynamics de Contrecourt, from La Province du Québec. If this is the same team Dynamics, this is also the group that puts on the new race for cadets and junior women in Quebec. This is the Tour de l'Avenir Macedons. And it's I don't want to call it a replacement for the old the Tour of Rimouski, but the Rimouski race hasn't happened in a year or two, so it certainly filled the gap that Rimouski left when it went off the calendar. So this is the big race that a lot of these riders are aiming for in their sort of cadet, and then for junior women for that part of their career in Canada. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to do it last year. Hopefully things will change this year, and that the Tour de l'Avenir will happen and give these young women a chance to participate and compete in real life against their competitors, their friends and colleagues across the country, and even some Americans that do come up as well. I don't think we have any Americans in the race today, Josh, but we did have some in the men's race. So if you know any young women in the U.S. who want to come up and try this, we have one more race coming up in about a week, and there's still one more opportunity for them to go and race. So we've got in 5th position here, this is Ella Myers. She is now riding by herself, and it's an unfortunate position because it looks like she was not able to close that gap so close just a few kilometers ago, but now it looks like our group in the front has put almost 2/3 of a kilometer on Ms. Myers there, and she has at least well over a kilometer in front of the group behind her. So it looks like she might be riding solo for the rest of this race. Now that's a tough psychological position to be in because you don't get that draft and you have to work hard. But she really wants to hold on to that 5th position. So I think we're going to see her keeping those watts rolling forward. And then, of course, now we've got our group at the front. Still all together, Thomas, Baker, Bradbury, and Rogers. And we are just coming up to the 21-kilometer mark, meaning we have less than 15 kilometers to go. Already 265 meters have been climbed in this race. Let's take a look at our overall elevation. Here, let's put that up on screen for you right now. Look at the bottom of the screen. And that big white upside-down teardrop is that is Nicole Bradbury. This is the rider we're looking at right now. And they are just about to come up to the big climb of the day, and that's where we saw a lot of the split that happened in our front group. They're now entering the gravel section. The big split that sort of happened, and we lost Myers, and then it was down to 3, and then Rogers came up. So let's see if this same kind of thing happens on this climb here. Let's take a look at the drone footage right now. And see, as we're entering the gravel section, only maybe a few hundred meters before the big climb, you look on the top right of your screen, you're going to see the slope change. Right now we're roughly flat, 0.1 plus, and you're going to see that up, starting to rise, 1.2, 1.3, 2. So now we're in the climb. So those who don't have enough energy, you might see them fall off the back here. Plus, we have some in-game physics that relate to the weight of the rider. So if you see on the left, they've got the watts per kilogram. That's a function of their total wattage they're putting out on the bike right now, divided by their weight in kilograms. Now, when you're going up a slope, gravity comes into play a little bit, right? So the heavier the rider is, the more it comes into play. Now, that being said, most of these riders in these age ranges are really, really light. I remember last year in the Ontario Zwift series that we put on, one of the young Ontario male riders, I can't remember the name right now, super, super light. So watts per kilogram through the roof. Right, it's a very strong rider, but that combined with the weight of the rider kept the watts per kilogram really, really high and allowed that rider to do all the climbs much faster than most of the adults riding in the top, the A group, and beating many of the elite 1-2 men just because of that absolute lightness and the climbs are involved, right? So here we're at a 6.5, roughly 6.2 slope right now, and all four of these women are doing exceptionally well. You see on the left, their watts per kilogram are getting in the red zone. They're putting out a lot of power, and they're all sticking together. So I suspect, based on the energy output they're doing right now and the fact that they're staying together, there's no elastic banding happening, that this is going to be our final group moving into the finish line.
And looking back, Andrew, to the comment section, it's getting nice and active here. We have, we'll call them the Nora cheering squad. Definitely a lot of love out there for both Noras. Welcome to Mary DeBacco, says, very proud of you, Vanessa. Also, maybe nickname alert. This one could be an embarrassing mom aunt. I don't know, but we've got Go Sweet Chums. And given that comes from Corin Baker, I'm going to assume that maybe Dylan Baker is our Sweet Chums. So we'll let her review back on this video feed and grimace on that one, or maybe love it. But great to see you out, Corin, watching the action. Rob Stagg says, good job, Alex. And I'm assuming that refers to Alexandra Volstad, who's an independent U17 rider out of Alberta. And once again, we do have quite the active cheering squad for NCCH and the Bradbury girls. So Amanda James says, looking good, Bradbury girls, and that they are. Nicole continues to lead that sort of lead group up at the front along with Dylan Baker, as well as the Gazer Rogers and I'm starting to lose track of everybody, but great crew up front. So we're looking like, again, we're kind of out of the climbing section of all this. Now we're on a bit of a downhill. As you can see, as Andrew alluded to, the top right there, you can see we're on a minus 0.5 slope. So that does mean we're going downhill. You can see it in the physics of the riders. They're not pedaling as hard. They get a chance to rest the legs. They've obviously done quite a bit of climbing, and they're not out of the woods yet. There will certainly be some more climbing to come. But great to see that they have a nice chance to rest, and they'll be doing some sort of strategic breaks here so that they can take some time, get their breath back. The interesting bit we sort of notice here with virtual racing versus anything else is, again, as Andrew mentioned, with the mental game, you know, in a regular race, you might be able to ride up next to somebody, look over and see you can read the pain on their face. Now, when you're riding like this, you look over and see the avatar next to your avatar, and these are cartoon features that they show nothing but focus for racing. So maybe one of these days we'll actually be able to throw some live streaming into these commentary broadcast sort of footages like they did at the UCI Esports World Championships. Certainly makes it makes it more real. We know these riders are definitely hurting right now. They're working really hard, but we certainly can't see it on their avatars. So if any of those riders are listening in, good on you. Keep it up. We're getting towards the finish. A little bit more work to do, but I suspect we'll start to see some real action here as we get into the second lap.
Well, that's a great idea there, Josh. The I guess the big races, they sometimes they have a video in there of some of the riders. They'll have their webcam running, and then the commentators will go and talk to the riders and find out how well they're doing, right? So, as we improve things and figure ourselves out, maybe we can even do that next week. We can get, if any of the riders out there are maybe interested in popping in and doing a quick shout out on the screen, we can work that out. So send an email to the guys at SAS Cycling, either Caleb or Russ, and let them know that you might be interested in joining and having a quick shout out while you're riding the bike, just to get the on the ground input from riders. So let them know, and we'll see if we can work that out for next week's race.
Yeah, and you know what, to that point, Andrew, absolutely. Reach out to the organizers if you'd like to be featured potentially as a streamed rider in that race. We can find a way to maybe add that into the broadcast. If you want an idea of what it really can look like, obviously you can YouTube, check out the footage from the 2020 UCI Esports World Championships. They do a great job of presenting that. And also, Cycling Canada actually did just produce a feature short film on our experience as Team Canada at the Esports World Championships. For those who didn't see that race, not only are we strong provincially, you can see some great young riders here, but on the elite world scale, Team Canada were some major contenders at the inaugural Esports World Championships. The team was well organized, actually won team of the race in the men's elite world championships. And from that race, you'll actually be able to see in the little sort of video recap we did, you can really see sort of the pain. They featured rider Pierre-Andre Cote out of Quebec. You'll see in some of those latter parts of the footage, he is basically what looks like having a heart attack as he does these races. Just crazy efforts, insane amounts of work. This is probably what we're seeing for these riders right now, but we can't actually see it. All we're seeing is those strong power numbers on the left and some good showmanship from these riders out on this gravel course here at Dirty Reaver.
You bring up an interesting point there, Josh. The Canadians did really well on the esports scene in the initial year. I think partly almost like what I described before about how these youth riders, these young riders now are getting the opportunity to race virtually. I mean, as a country, we've been riding trainers for decades. I mean, we only have so many good months of outdoor riding, and in some parts of the country even less so. So a lot of the professional cyclists that we have in our roster over the years are very, very used to riding on trainers for 6 months out of the year. So here we are in an international pandemic where now everybody is now forced to do some sort of indoor riding because of whatever sort of social restrictions, lockdown rules they might have in their country. So the Canadians, I think, they had an advantage because they were used to doing all their training, the bulk of their sort of winter season training on the indoor trainer. So all these other riders who had to do that as well were now basically learning from ground zero and not getting the same kind of training that our riders did. So I think that certainly speaks to the advantage of doing this early and long enough so that you can do well in esports. So just on the screen there, Josh, we had a little bit of an attack there by Nicole Bradbury, countered very quickly by Thomas Baker and Rogers. So once again, I think this is a very strong group of riders. They are going to stay together, and we're certainly, I think, going to see a big final sprint from these four here as we get closer to the race. 24.5 kilometers in, just a little under 11 kilometers remaining, 330 meters climbed, and we are coming up on the 1 hour mark. So it certainly has been an interesting race. We've been watching this group of four in the front here. Let's see if we can go back and take a look at, see if our other group of four is still together. I know we've got, it looks like Baker, I didn't notice after that little surge, did not make the jump. Baker is now about 80 meters behind Bradbury, Rogers, and Thomas. That is an interesting development. Dylan Baker is our current junior women's race series leader. She's wearing that fuchsia race jersey right now, and they're in the big climb right now, so we'll see if she's got the energy. She's climbing really hard. Let's take a look at the forward mode. Annabelle Thomas falling back a little bit, so that might be good for Baker. Thomas and Baker might be able to work together to catch up to Rogers and Bradbury. Interesting development here on this big climb. You look at the bottom of the screen, we've got the course elevation. This is the other big climb of the main part of the loop. So we'll see if this affects our outcome of the race. So while this is sort of playing out, let me see if we can go back again and look at those riders that we were hoping to catch up there. So here's Myers, unfortunately, once again riding alone, but holding on to her position. Maybe only lost about 100 meters on our group of 4 in the front, but the group behind her is catching up a little bit. They were at 1.2, 1.3 kilometers, and now they are just a little over that 1 kilometer mark. So Myers is going to have to work really hard to keep this group behind her from catching up. Cochon working alone right now. She did have riders with her, but she's got about 100 meters on Volstad right now. So that group split up. That was a chase group of 2 earlier when we checked in. And then we have, it was a group of 4. Now we're down to a group of 3. Nora Linton, Yasmin Purdon, and Sophie Bradbury all riding together. They're currently sitting at 22.2 kilometers in the course, just shy of 3K behind our race leader, Nicole Bradbury. And that is Sophie Bradbury, Nicole's younger sister. So Purdon, Bradbury, and Linton still riding together. And then we still have Kirsten Simpson soloing really, really hard. Keep going, Kirsten, doing a great job there. And then Nora Rittinger following up the pace there. 19 riders online. Kirsten and Nora are in 11th and 12th position. And then behind these two, we've got Vanessa Montfauchard from NCCH sitting in 13th position, and that's a moto, so we're going to skip that. It looks like Annika Brantz had a technical. When I stepped off the mic for a minute there, Josh, did we go over the technical issue already?
Yeah, we definitely did talk about technical, and you know what? That's seeing Dylan Baker. It's funny, my spectator view was set on her having been at the front of the race, and it looked like she did stop for a brief moment there. So we may have experienced a technical from Dylan Baker. It'll be interesting to see. I'm watching now. You can see sort of those red figures on her power output. She's trying real hard to get back, but it looks like she's, Nicole's definitely got her foot on the gas, as does Geza Rogers. So they're trying to put some space into her, knowing she's got that pink leader's jersey on, and she's a real contender here if it comes down to a sprint.
Yeah, let's check back in with them shortly. Just wanted to quickly run through the back of the race here. We've got Sophie Hudrichuk working really hard. Sophie from Team SAS, that's the home team. Keep going, Sophie. And last, of course, but not least, this is Amy Gauthier, an independent rider from Manitoba, working really hard. She's putting those watts out. Keep going, Amy. Of course, this is all about points, so keep going really hard and finish that race. Nice tuck there from Amy Gauthier. Moving forward to the front of the race, Nicole Bradbury on a solo flyer. Looks like she has put 120 meters on Geza Rogers right now. So that is certainly a new development at the front of this race, and it looks like it is completely broken up at this point. We are able to move on back, and then we've got Rogers here 100 meters back. Dylan Baker, if it was a technical and she's back in the race, it's great. It's unfortunate, but she's got a big gap to make up right now. 200 meters to Bradbury, less than 100 meters to Roger, and then Annabelle Thomas has fallen off the group a bunch now. It's almost 300 meters. Unfortunate for our...
Great, Andrew. It looks like I'm getting an update here on the comments. It appears that it wasn't a technical, but an actual mechanical for Dylan Baker. She may have dropped her chain, it sounds like. So, we are riding... There's obviously the virtual component, but these are real bikes on real trainers, and these things can happen when you're shifting through gears, as these riders are, aggressively coming up to hills and everything else. So it appears Dylan did drop a chain, so that quick stop in effort there, and her sort of avatar moving over the side of the road, that was an actual real life mechanical. So unfortunate, and as we can see, she's pushing those watts, trying to catch back up to the group, but it's going to be, as they say, an uphill battle for her.
Absolutely. It looks like she is putting some of that distance between her and Rogers, but it's certainly going to be tough right now because they've lost the climb section. They're over the big climb, and there's a descent coming up. Bradbury now 300, almost 400 meters on Baker, and maybe 300 meters on Rogers. So that might have been the move of the day. If we had a moving company sponsor, I'm sure that's when we'd be flashing their logo across the screen. Bradbury just taking maybe advantage of the mechanical, or we didn't see the jump, so maybe that was just well-timed on her part, but she's certainly reaping the rewards right now. 400 meters now on Baker, 325 on Rogers, with only about I guess from her perspective, about 7.9 kilometers left in the race. So she's putting out the wattage right now, 5.2 watts per kilogram. Let's see if we can head up to the footage of That's me. You don't want to see me. You want to see... There we go. Nicole Bradbury pushing really, really hard. 4.1 watts per kilogram. 7.5 kilometers remaining in the race, and she is working really, really hard to put even more distance on her competitors. Rogers now 400 meters back, Baker 420, and it looks like Annabelle Thomas is now a full kilometer back. Bradbury is just putting the pedal to the metal. She wants to win this solo. She is not the sprinter, she's the endurance rider. She wants to go home with the gold by having no one else around her.
And you put yourself in a vulnerable position going out front, something like this. You're losing sort of the physics and the mechanics of being in a group. You're taking on all that headwind solo. What we do know of Nicole is she's a very strong road and track athlete. Like Andrew says, a very strong endurance rider. So essentially what we're looking at, if she's trying to stay out of that group sprint, it's a time trial basically from now for the remaining roughly 7 kilometers until that finish line. So she's got her work cut out for her, but we know she's definitely got that capability, and the riders behind her certainly will know that as well, as we continue to see some sort of red wattage outputs from those riders desperately trying to get back on her wheel.
Yeah, looking at the screen on the left, that wattage she's putting out is just phenomenal. She was hovering around 6 watts per kilogram, sort of averaging 5 watts per kilogram right now. Super impressive. Bradbury coming up right now on screen up against Amy Gauthier from Team Manitoba. So a full lap on Miss Gauthier there. Bradbury is certainly showing how strong she is right now. Still around 5 watts per kilogram. Rogers put a little bit of distance reduction there. It was over 400 meters and now in the 370, 380 range. But Bradbury is holding on really strong. Let's see if we can move back to see what's happening here. Looks like Baker and Rogers are now riding together. So that might be bad news for Bradbury. 6.6 kilometers left. If Baker and Rogers can work together and take advantage of those physics, Josh, they might be able to bridge that gap and be there to mix it up for the sprint finish. But how many matches will they have had to burn to get there, and will it help or hinder them when they get to that finish line?
Yeah, that's right, Andrew. It's like you say, they will benefit from, just like you would see in a regular race, the ability to ride together and take turns and sort of push the pace to catch back up to Nicole. With that said, on the strategy side, Nicole's going to be able to glance to the left of her screen. She can see, okay, they're the same distance behind me. They're together. They're going to be coming at me together. So she's going to know, and we're starting to see it. You can really see it in the physics of this game. It's a very well put together game like that. When a rider's really turning their legs and creating some cadence there, the avatar is showing that. So as you can kind of see when we're looking at a negative slope, which we had just seen previously, Nicole's legs were still turning, meaning she's sort of running like, just ride it like she stole it, as they would say. She's away from the group. She's stealing this race, and we're hoping, and she's hoping that she can stay away. But as you mentioned, Baker and Rogers are really, you can see those red figures on the left. They're pushing the watts to catch up, and it could make for a really exciting finale here, Andrew.
And I think they're beginning to realize this now as well. You noticed for a little while there that their wattage was sort of hovering in the high 3s, but having that, I don't know if they can actually see what we see here on the screen. I haven't actually ridden the RGT as a participant before, but if they can look over and see that Bradbury's being able to put out 5 watts per kilogram on average, 3.8 is not going to cut it if they want to get that distance down. Maybe 20, 30 seconds ago, there was about 480 meters, and now they brought that down to 400 meters. So if they really want to get serious about reeling Bradbury in, they're going to have to match her watts per kilogram, watt by watt, and they're going to have to hold that for the next 5 kilometers to be able to mix it up in the final 500 meters of the race. So certainly this is going to be the cat and mouse game. For Baker, it's maybe a little bittersweet. Provincial teammates from Ontario looking that might take home the gold today's race. And depending on how the points are awarded, it may not be able to take her series leader away, because I don't believe Bradbury was in the race last week, but certainly puts Bradbury in competition with Baker for the series next week. So Baker will have to work really hard to finish in the top of the points to make sure that a double Bradbury win wouldn't knock her out of the series champion.
That's right, Andrew. And selfishly, as the spectator, as the commentator, it's going to make things real exciting for us, at least, to watch next week. If we see Nicole come back for that third race, if she's able to take today, it's going to, as you mentioned, it's going to make it an interesting race for the series as a whole, coming into next week. And next week's a challenging race to start with. So always love to see this. That's why we have a series versus just one race and a crown. It's going to make things real interesting as we round off phase one with our final race next Sunday.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are just joining in with us right now, welcome to the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series live stream. We've got currently 45 concurrent viewers watching this live stream. So that's friends, family, and even grandparents from around the country watching their young loved ones and their friends, kids, participate in this great virtual series, this race happening right now here across the country. If you want to be sure that you can check out the race next week, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button on the Junior Race Series channel. That way you'll get notified when the live stream is going to start. But of course, it's the same time next Sunday. It'll be 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific for the men's race, and 1:30 p.m. 10:30 a.m. Pacific, Eastern, and then Pacific for the women's race. And if you have a chance, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events. That's ARC events. And that way you can make a small donation to support the live stream channel here to make sure that we can cover everything that we're doing for you here today. So thanks for any donations that might come in. You'll be able to check out that link at the end of the video. We'll have that up on the screen. Going back to our race, it looks like we're up on a climb right now, 7.5% slope. Roger's taking advantage of that, or possibly just getting out of the saddle. I don't think she wants to lose Baker right now because that is her only ticket back to Bradbury, who now has 700 meters on Rogers and Baker. So it's looking like that percentage chance is getting less and less for those of you who play poker. You know when it's a big showdown and then the turn and the river start coming out and you see those percentage numbers change on the live screen. If we had the same thing, we would start showing you that percentage is starting to change. Once you get up into that kind of a gap, it becomes less and less possible for these two to bridge that gap and mix it up for gold. So they might have to be settling for silver and bronze here in this particular race. But for them, that is still a phenomenal output. Josh.
Yeah, and Andrew, with only about 3.5 kilometers to go, we're not seeing a ton of elevation or major climbing in the latter parts of this race. So as you mentioned, the odds that they can now catch up to Bradbury, especially given her power, I mean, from what I can see on the left of that screen, she's been sitting in averaging right around 4.5 watts per kilo for the last few kilometers at least, which is a pretty daunting pace to try and match if you're that chase group. So as you mentioned, the odds that they're able to catch her towards the end are getting slimmer by the kilometer here with only 3K to go. There's a good chance Nicole stays away. And as an experienced rider on the road and the track, she knows just how to stay away. So it's going to be a tough push for Rogers and Baker. Could be an interesting sprint either way for those two at the finish line. Absolutely.
For sure. Now that we've got Bradbury coming into the final 3K, let's just quickly take a look back and see how some of our chase groups are doing before we get into the sprint finish. We've got Annabelle Thomas still riding solo, but she has a 1.2 kilometers on Myers there. So it looks like if she can maintain this pace, that a lock for fourth position in fifth. Myers, 4 watts per kilogram right now, about 1 kilometer on Brittany Cochon. So it looks like Myers, if she can hold on and keeps everything solid, then it looks like a 5th place for her. Cochon riding solo right now, 3 watts per kilogram, working really hard, but doesn't have anyone with her. It looks like Volstad is a good 300 meters behind her. So it doesn't look like in the last couple of kilometers they might be able to help bridge up to Myers. So you're sort of looking at the top 7 right now, probably going to be what our finish is, unless, of course, anything can happen in bike racing any given Sunday for sure. Our group of 3 here from Ontario, 2 from Ontario and 1 from New Brunswick. We have Bradbury, Purdon, and it looks like Kirsten Simpson is powering her way up. She was a few positions behind last time we checked in, and now she's currently sitting in this group of 8 to 10. So good on Kirsten. And it looks like Nora Linton is still with this group as well. So a group of 4 riders together. So this is where we're going to see some activity. Hopefully we'll be able to kick back and watch this sprint finish as well. And then, of course, we have a lot of our solo riders here, Nora Rittinger and Vanessa Montrechard. And then we've got a couple of Techcanicals, and we also saw Sophie Hrdicuk earlier. She was mixing it up with our two riders in second and third, Rogers and Baker, taking advantage of that draft, so that was a smart move. And then, of course, we have Gauthier here. This is Amy Gauthier, doing really well, still putting out, so keep on going, Amy. You're doing a great job. Let's move back up to our front. Nicole Bradbury, 2 kilometers left to go. 4.2 watts per kilogram, was averaging around 5. Rogers Baker in hot pursuit at 5.6 watts per kilogram, but I think it's a little too late. 800 meters between Bradbury and our duo of Rogers and Baker, with almost 1.5 kilometers to go. We're going to see Bradbury coming into the bridge section and then the pavement section. I think it's all over. All Bradbury has to do is maintain now almost 1 kilometer between herself and Rogers and Baker. So I think this is a foregone conclusion, folks. Nicole Bradbury will be going home with the gold today. 1.5 kilometers to go. Almost 430 meters have been climbed by this rider, traveling 43 kilometers an hour. We're almost an hour and a quarter into the race now, and it certainly has been exciting. A lot of activity. You would think that when a race breaks up, Josh, that it may not be as exciting when you don't have the pack riding, but there's been a lot of shifts in the positions. A lot of riders have managed to bridge, change position. They've done really well, so I think this race has been super exciting to watch amongst all the different groups and the 2 different categories on the course, Josh.
Yeah, and it's going to be really exciting. I mean, like you say, there's a very good chance, and barring any Techcanicals or real-life mechanicals that Nicole may run into, there's a good chance she'll take this one away. We're going to have to make sure to bounce the spectator view back into Baker and Rogers as soon as we see Nicole cross that line. That's going to be an exciting sprint for second place. 2 riders riding in different age categories. So, we will see for sure that if barring anything crazy, Rogers should be your first place U17, followed by, or with Baker, your second place junior, but it will be an exciting sprint to watch back. So we'll have to definitely check in on that one after we see Nicole cross this line in about 750 meters to go now.
Yep, Bradbury is just a few hundred meters off of getting back onto that asphalt and still putting out 4.5 watts per kilogram. This is the point in the race in real life where you would see the rider turning their head around to see what kind of a gap. And let's take a look at what that looks like from Bradbury's perspective. Nobody behind her right now. So I think she's feeling really good. All she needs to do is maintain on this one and doesn't even need to sprint into the finish. The risk here sometimes is if you feel like that you've got it solid, you might give up a little bit. That doesn't look like Bradbury's doing that. Looks like she's holding on solid, still 4 watts per kilogram. Does not want to let this one get away. All that effort to only have your competitors come crashing in behind you and to take the win. As they say, the race isn't over until you cross the line. And I'm sure, as many of you have seen on YouTube, tons of videos of people throwing their arms up in celebration only to get chopped at the line because they thought they had it and they didn't. But I think it's pretty confident here that Nicole certainly has it. So here comes the pavement section. A couple of 100 meters to go. We're coming into the finish line. Just look for that overhead gantry, those flags. Up on the right here, it says about 150 meters to go. And here we go, the flags, about 100 meters. This is where there would be a sprint happening if they were together, but it looks like it is going to be Nicole Bradbury coming across the line on her own. And there you have it, folks. Nicole Bradbury, first place across the line. Let's check in with Rogers and Baker.
Should be a very exciting sprint between these 2 riders. Congrats to Nicole. And here comes the sprint finish for Baker and Rogers.
750 meters or so to go. They are riding closely together, putting out some decent wattage, 4.2, 3.7 watts per kilogram. So this will be the interesting one. Who has the energy left to put out that final sprint? Of course, in real life, you would see them looking back and forth at each other. Baker out of the saddle, doesn't want to let Rogers get away. Less than 700 meters to go. Rogers countering, looking to put a little bit of distance, 8 meters or so right now between the two of them. There is a huge climb right now. It's a 10-degree slope. It's the final climb of the race. Not a big one, but it's a little punchy climb, and that sometimes could mean the difference between staying with your group and losing a rider. But it looks like Rogers and Baker back together again. Let's take a look at it from the back here. Baker out of the saddle again, does not want to let Rogers get away. So it's going to be a 1-2, or in this case a 2-3 at the line for Rogers and Baker. But the question is, who's got the sprint? Taking a look over at the leaderboard on the left, looks like Annabelle Thomas still by herself, about 500 meters back from Rogers and Baker here. So it looks like 4th place for Thomas. Myers also alone, 2.5 kilometers back. And then we've got Cochon, Volstad, and then our group of riders back there. So we're going to try to stay with you for that race and check out how the rest of it goes. Rogers on a huge attack right now, hoping to get to that finish line first. About 100 meters or so to go. Baker hot in pursuit on Rogers' wheel. It might be Baker's if she has the last bunch. And there she goes. Baker's out of the saddle, coming into the last 50 meters, and it looks like it's going to be Baker taking second.
Wow.
Rogers in a third. Congratulations.
And just to see the power output there, Andrew, just sorry to cut you off, but wow, 10 watts per kilo across that finish line. Just so impressive to see the power these girls are putting out. It's just really great to see. And remember, again, that was a junior and a U17 rider together. So congratulations to Rogers, really mixing it up there with the 17 and 18-year-olds of the junior category as a U17 rider herself. So great performance there today, duking it out with our current series leader, Dylan Baker. And congrats to Dylan for pushing back through after a mechanical, dropping that chain earlier in the race. So great race by both.
Yeah, that certainly has to be heartbreaking. You never know what's going to happen in a race when the race situation changes. Who knows if Baker would have had the gas to stay with Bradbury when she made that attack. Maybe it could have been a Bradbury-Baker 1-2. And depending on the two riders who maybe had the better sprint. So it could have been anyone's game if she didn't have that mechanical. So always super important to make sure that your bicycle is in tip-top shape before you get on the bike, and try to avoid any of those things to make sure that it's just about the power. Thomas now on our asphalt section, 180 meters to go, and no one in the rearview mirror, just taking a look behind, and of course our closest competitor is almost 2K back. So Thomas out of the saddle, doing a sprint finish like a pro, coming in 4th overall. And how does that place her in the categories, Josh?
That puts her 2nd place in the U17 grouping, and again, that teal jersey of our U17 series leader. So she now obviously has a very strong competitor in Rogers. She'll definitely have a target on her back next week. This should make for a really exciting 3rd race in Mallorca next week. Great solo effort by Annabelle Thomas from Alberta. Really crushed it, rode solo most of that race and maintained that position. Again, a U17 rider finishing ahead of a lot of those juniors. So it goes to show where her fitness is at and how strong she is as an athlete. So congrats to you, Annabelle.
Now on screen, we're looking at Ella Myers in 5th position. So about 1.5 kilometers to go. Looks like she has a solid chance at staying in 5th position. But she's got some competitors in hot pursuit, only about 1 kilometer back. That might not be enough to bridge that gap. So all Myers needs to do is hold that 3.5 watts that she's putting out right now, and come across the line in 5th position.
Yeah, another really exciting race. Now that is another Albertan. So really strong performances today from our Albertan and Western riders. The biggest contingent coming from Ontario, but a couple riders trickling in from Alberta and BC. Again, throwing up some of our strongest performances, particularly all of those West Coast riders. So each of your riders from BC, each of your riders from Alberta, they're all U17 racers. So we're talking at the oldest, 16 years of age. Mixing it up with the 17 and 18-year-olds. So great to see that. Great sign for the future of our sport.
Now, before we see Myers cross the finish line, one of the things I want to do is jump back to our 6th and 7th position. Earlier, it looked like they were not working together, but now I was looking at our screen, and it looks like that they are riding a little bit together. We've got Volstad. Oh, no, excuse me, that was incorrect. You know what? And maybe it was the case a few seconds ago, but by the time that I got there, it looks like Cochon and Volstad split apart, but it looked like they were working really closely together. So moving back up to Myers, coming up to our final section, 800 meters to go, and she'll have a nice cruise into the finish line there. Well over a kilometer between herself and Volstad, so Myers just needs to get through this final little punchy climb here. It's going to get up to about 10%. Hopefully she's got the gas to keep going. Looking at some of those numbers, they are dropping a little bit. But again, with a kilometer there, it doesn't look like it'll be very easy for Volstad to close that gap. So all Myers needs to do is just to keep pushing, and 5th place is all but hers.
And you know what, with a 10% climb that close to the finish line, it's got to feel nice not to have any other riders breathing down your neck, knowing you have to push massive watts and get ready to push some more massive watts at the finish line. So sort of a courageous effort here from Ella Myers. She's going to finish strong on her own and not have to worry too much about a sprint. She's going to be able to, if she can just maintain a little bit of power, she'll push it through the finish line and have a very respectable finish here. What a great performance from this Alberta rider.
And it looked like Volstad was putting some distance on Myers there, but I think a lot of that had to do with the punchy climb that Myers just went through. You see the number dropping right now, but I think in the next couple hundred meters, we're going to see Volstad sort of slowing down a little bit in terms of the distance gap, and then maybe even increasing as she gets to that big part of the climb. Let's see if we can just quickly pop back and take a look at that. Hasn't hit the climb quite yet, so we'll see that number maybe go up a little bit. Hrichuk trying to jump onto Myers' wheel to get a little bit of a boost there, looking to get up to speed there. Myers in huge gear right now, 4 watts per kilogram, 150 meters left to go. Looks like this is all but Myers once again for 5th place, and that would put her in 3rd for the U17s. Is that correct?
That would indeed. So super strong showing from our U17 riders today, as mentioned, and that does seem to be the bulk contingent of the age category racers here, but certainly some very strong finishes amongst our U17 riders, particularly those from out west in Alberta and BC. So great job out there today.
You know, Josh, if they're going to accept feature requests from lowly commentators, I would say to the RGT folks, if you can have a button that you can push, or at least have the actual winner of the race digitally throw their hands up, I'm sure that would look great on screen.
Wouldn't it actually, for our broadcast and for all of our 20 or 30 viewers that are watching today? I'm sure it would create some great excitement. And I'm sure, the way these apps are developing, it wouldn't surprise me that we start to see features like that down the road. It seems like there's new features almost every week, whether it be Zwift or RGT, Full Gas, whatever it might be. So to see where this will go in the next year itself, I think will be impressive for us to see.
So we've got Alexandra Volstad here, rider from Team Alberta. And she's got about 300 meters on Brittany Cochon from L'Équipe du Québec. So it looks like she will go home in the 6th place, about a half kilometer left in the race. It's going to be hard to put 300 meters on in that distance. So again, once again, she'll just need to maintain her wattage and come on in for a nice, solid 6th place finish.
Yeah, and you know what? Not far behind, we're also seeing the sister of our winner, Sophie Bradbury, the younger sister racing in the U17 category. She'll be coming through. Not far, we're actually seeing C. Bradbury still cheering on C. Sophie ahead here. So still keeping an eye on the race. Glad we can see the rest of these riders come through. The battle isn't over for a lot of people out there, including Miss Bradbury herself. So we'll continue to watch here as these little sprints happen towards the finish line.
Here we are looking at Volstad coming into the finish, about 50 meters to go. She comes into the final barriers, and here's the finish line. Volstad, 6th place overall. Moving back to Brittany Cochon, now with about 600 meters, she's in that kicker, that 10% slope. It looks like she's barely moving, but she's putting out some good wattage there. So you definitely know it's the game physics there, keeping her speed down below 10 kilometers an hour. It's always tough to watch that. And, Josh, earlier you mentioned something about having that sort of psychological aspect. And I think that this kind of thing really does hit hard. You know, you're traveling fast, and then all of a sudden you get to this big 10-degree slope, and you could probably walk up it faster. It seems like sometimes. So that certainly is tough to deal with, and you know, having no one around you certainly helps. But if you take a look at the screen on the left, we got our group from 8 through to 10, only about 300 meters back. So it was close. It was tight. You know, she really needs to work really hard if she wants to hold on to 7th place. Quickly just jumping back to see if we've got our group of 3 riders together. Bradbury, yeah, they're all still together. So that's going to be out, and it looks like they have, no, I'm not Bradbury. Sorry, Brittany Cochon still 300 meters ahead with only 400 meters to go. So I think 7th place is a lock for this rider from Quebec.
Yeah, you know what? You got to think too. Actually, these hills with the massive slopes on them. You know, I got to think too. We've all, none of these riders are strangers to gravel riding or mountain biking. And you almost got to think, you know, as you're hitting this 10% slope, it's like, I can just feel the dirt sliding under my tires, slowing me down even further. It's like you say, that type of slope, you probably feel like you can walk up slower. So all the different mental games that are playing in here that we just can't see on these well-composed avatars. You know, those actual riders are suffering on those bikes.
Yeah, like, you know, they need to add the sweat feature, right? So like, and make sure they're really sweating out there. It looks like they're just sort of casually riding, but you know that the rider at home is just suffering, and they've got that pain face on. So maybe that would be great to see next week if we get somebody to join us on the live stream from their pain cave in their garage as they're riding at home. Brittany Cochon coming across the line now in 7th position. Quickly jumping back to our group of 3 riders, we've got Linton, Bradbury, and Simpson. It looks like Bradbury has taken off. Oh, we just missed the attack. Sophie Bradbury doing an impression of her older sister and doing it very well now with 80 meters on her closest competitor coming into the final asphalt section. It looks like it isn't going to be that sprint finish that we were looking for. Bradbury disappointing us, but hopefully doing really well for herself, and hopefully she's proud of this finish. 6 watts per kilogram right now. Sophie Bradbury coming in. Looks like she's going to take 8th place. Nora Linton 60 meters back. I don't think that she is going to be able to close it. Bradbury 8th position.
Wow, what a great finish for her. She knew that pressure was going to be on for a sprint, so she took that risk, and it
Nora Linton, and she just attacks out of the saddle. Nora coming in ahead of Kirsten Simpson. So it's going to be Linton, Simpson in 9th and 10th. And in the back here, we've got Yasmin Purdon, who is riding solo, but riding really hard. She was with that group earlier. She got dropped. We missed that on the footage. But a solid finish for Yasmin here, coming in 11th overall with only about 150 meters to go. Congratulations, Yasmin, for that finish. Let's just quickly pop back and just give quick shout outs to the rest of the field. We've got Nora Rittinger still working hard. Vanessa Montechard still working really hard as well. And then coming in, we've got Sophie Hrychuk, and who looks like she isn't maybe having a technical there, and then Gauthier as well. Hopefully they're able to finish the race. But congratulations to all of the women who participated. Here's a shot of the finish line there. And with that, that about ends our broadcast for the live stream of the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series. So that's another 2 races down. We had our men's race earlier today. The women's race just completed now. Race 2 of 3, 1 more coming up. What do you think about what we've seen so far, Josh?
Oh, I mean, if anything, that goes to show you the depth of talent that we've got across this country, not just by a certain province or a certain age group. We've got riders from the entire country mixing it up with each other, 15-year-olds racing up against 18-year-olds and giving them a real run for their money. So we're seeing some strong performances, and now we're going to start to see things get mixed up a little bit on that leaderboard. So as things come into next week, I don't think you'll want to miss that. As Andrew mentioned, we'll be back same time, same place next week to catch all the live footage. So be sure to join us. Thanks to everyone who's provided some comments, cheered on other riders. We are glad to see you there, and we hope to see you back again next week. So thanks to everyone for coming out.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Josh. And be sure once again, to hit like and subscribe on that YouTube channel to make sure that you get the notification for when the live stream does go live on YouTube next week. And also, if you want to head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC-events and donate to keep the live stream supported, that would be awesome too. On behalf of myself and Josh Peacock from Cycling Canada, all the folks at SAS Cycling, all of our sponsors and partners, thank you for coming out and joining us with this race. A lot of excellent racing today. Congratulations to all the young women and men who participated. We're looking forward to seeing you next week here live on the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series live stream.